So today I'm actually going to look at the 5 head coach that most likely is going to be fired next in MLS. And last week we know that DC United finally let go of their longtime head coach Ben Olsen after 10 years serving as the head coach of that team. And knowing the fact that we are now in a time where it seemed like the head coach carousel and the head coach turnover rate in MLS is higher than ever before, and that we already saw this season that 4 head coach has been let go by their team. I won't be surprised we are going to once again get another head coach that's going to end up in the chopping block soon, and that in the past couple of years we have had more than 5 head coach that has been let go in a season. So that is kind of another evidence of why I think maybe we're going to see another head coach before the end of this season that could be let go of the team. And that in this video I'm just going to look at who exactly most likely are going to be that coach, and that this is going to be a ranking system of me looking at the top 5 candidates that could be fired next as the head coach of a respective MLS team. So starting at number 5, I am going to go with Rony Dalia. And in the beginning of the season, I would have put Rony Dalia right near the top 2 alongside with Frank de Boer, because in the beginning of the season, not only the fact that NYCFC was struggling, but they looked like they were undergo the worst part of their franchise history, where they just could not score a goal whatsoever, and that they were going on a losing run. And there was a lot of NYCFC fans that was already questioning the hiring of Rony Dalia, and some even pressured the front office to let him go immediately. Now, the good news for Rony Dalia is that eventually he did right the ship, and that whatever his philosophy and tactics that he implemented to this team eventually started to kind of work out a little bit, and now they got themselves near the middle of the standings in the Eastern Conference. But that being said, obviously NYCFC is expecting him to not only make the playoffs, but hopefully make a deep run heading into the playoffs this season. And knowing the fact that NYCFC is one of those teams that don't usually have a head coach stay with them for a very long time. Even some of the more successful ones like Patrick Vieira and Dominic Turin, they didn't even stay with this team for more than 2 seasons. So it'll be interesting to see how this is going to go, and that, I'm not expecting Rony Dalia to potentially get fired this season, but next season or the season after, this will be interesting to see whether or not if he's going to remain the head coach, knowing the fact that NYCFC have a history of changing head coaches pretty much every 2 or 3 years. Now, at number 4, and this is going to be a surprise for some people, because you're probably asking me, well, Jeff Stam was just the head coach of FC Cincinnati a couple of months ago. How is he now end up in the list in terms of the 5 head coach that most likely is going to be fired next in MLS? Well, the answer to that question is that the team that Jaap Stam is coaching is pretty much the same as the team from last season in terms of resort-wise. I mean, this FC Cincinnati team, all that hope that after this offseason where the front office promised the fans that they, of course, made some big mistake in the first season, and they're looking to try to correct that by making some signing on the attack, and those attacking pieces have just completely fallen apart. Now, I will say this, part of it isn't completely on the fault of Jaap Stam, because most of the signing that FC Cincinnati and most of the players that comes to this team that has just been a gigantic flop isn't really Jaap Stam's fault, because he did not pick these players. But I think this offseason, when FC Cincinnati most likely is going to be once again blowing up the squad, but more likely they're probably gonna have some changes in the front office too, because when you have a front office that cannot get the team right and cannot build a successful MLS roster twice, yeah, there's definitely a lot of question in terms of that, and that I expect there should be some changes in the front office for FC Cincinnati. And if that happens, it'll be interesting to see that these new personnel in the front office with FC Cincinnati are actually going to trust whether if Jaap Stam is actually going to be the head coach that once again going to go through what is now the 3rd rebuilding cycle that FC Cincinnati is going through and trying to finally get themselves compete in MLS. Now, at number 3, I am going to say Matias Almeyda. And I think a week or two ago, when the Quakes were basically the laughing stock of MLS, losing like 5, 6, 7-1 pretty much almost every single game, Almeyda has been probably on the list in terms of not only the top 5 head coach that most likely going to be fired next, but probably the most likely head coach to be fired. Like, I even said that after all those bad results, I was expecting there was going to be changes that was going to make, and that either if Almeyda decided that he was going to step down from his position, or the Quakes front office was going to potentially get a change. Because, you know, everywhere around the world, when you are a head coach and you see your team lose like 5-0, 6-1, 7-1 in a span of 4 games, yeah, most of those head coaches are not going to be staying with the position, and that there's not a lot of head coach that is not going to be fired after, or there's not going to be a lot of head coach that don't get fired with those results that has happened. So, you know, I'm kind of surprised the fact that Almeyda is still there, but at least in the last couple of weeks, he has started to stabilize the team and get resort for this team. And I think part of that is that I have seen in these past couple of games where even though he still used the man marking system, he does make some changes and kind of make the team a little bit more pragmatic, and a team that don't just go wild when they play and just kind of man mark everywhere and start giving up goals like absolutely crazy. But that being said, that doesn't mean Almeyda is still not in the hot seat, and that overall going forward, I just still think that as much as I like Almeyda and I like the vision that he want this team to be and the identity that he puts with this team, which is definitely fun to watch if you're a neutral. But for me, it's not really fun to watch if you're a fan of this team, where there also could be some unpredictability in terms of the way that the Quakes play, and that knowing the fact that his system demands a lot of kind of mental strength and also a lot of physical kind of demand of the squad, and that we saw last season, you know, his team basically was running all gun blazing pretty much every game. While that of course is fun to watch, as we get to near the end of the season, you can see the team which is absolutely gas. And even though this season we did had a shortened season, knowing the fact that we have to play like pretty much every game in a 3-day period, you can start to see that this squad is kind of start to slow down. And I'm just worried that as we get closer now to the end of the season, we're once again seeing the same thing as we saw last season, where the team are gradually started to slow down because of the fact that this system that he implemented really demands a lot out of his players, and in a long season like MLS is, it just does not work whatsoever. So yeah, I'm still gonna put Almeyda as one of the head coach that is most likely to be fired next, and that I think this offseason, if the Quakes, and I shouldn't say if, I hope that the Quakes are going to undergo some changes in terms of the front office and also in the upper rank in this team, that this could be also a possibility where new personnel comes in, and that just like what I said with FC Cincinnati and Yapstam, if new personality comes into the front office and they see Almeyda is not going to be the right fit, then they will definitely not hesitate in terms of decide to fire him, because I think the current regime right now, there's no way the current regime is thinking about fire Almeyda. Like, if he can last after all these bad results, there's no way that he is not going to last for the rest of this season, despite the fact that if somehow in some way this team will not make the playoffs this season, I think he's going to stay with us. But again, with new personnel, we shall see whether that's going to be the case. Now, at number 2, I'm going to say Marc Dos Santos. And, you know, there's definitely writings on the wall that Marc Dos Santos might not only be the second most likely to be fired next in terms of head coach, but probably the most likely to be fired next. Because, you know, last season I talked about how Vancouver had this fail kind of rebuild. And, you know, Marc Dos Santos, he, of course, admits that he did not do a good job in his first season and that he looks to try to change that up in the second season. Well, we're now in the second season, and yet there seems like there's no resort whatsoever, and that this Vancouver team just look as bad this season as they were last season, which that kind of makes you wonder, does that mean that the reason why they weren't making any process on the rebuild, is it really because of player quality, or the fact that Marc Dos Santos probably is not the right man to lead this rebuild? I mean, again, last year I give him the benefit of the doubt because this was his first year as a head coach, and he's just trying to figure things out. But now we're into the second year, and he doesn't seem like he's showing any progress in terms of making this team move forward in the rebuild. That does raise a lot alarm bell of whether or not if he's actually the right man, and the Vancouver Whitecaps might be thinking about potentially making a coaching change either this season or in the off season. But at number one, and I'm just gonna go with the initial because he has a pretty relatively long name, but it's gonna be Schelotto as now the most likely to be fired next, and it's simple to see why Schelotto is most likely going to be the one to be fired next, because the Galaxy is now rock bottom in the Western Conference. And for a team that, as I said, they have a lot of good talented player on their team, and they already spent a lot of money this offseason bringing Chicharito in, and we're expecting to be a team that is just going to be just as good as they were last season, making the playoffs. Well, the fact that they have just completely bottomed out in these last couple of games, and you can even see that there's, in these past couple of games, some of the players are just clearly not even playing for Schelotto, and it just feel like at times Schelotto doesn't even know what to do anymore and just kind of sit on the bench. You can clearly see that this looked like it is a lost cause right now, and that, you know, a lot of Galaxy fans has been demanding the front office to fire Schelotto. I think it all kind of started back when they didn't make the playoffs 2 years ago, even with Zlatan there, that a lot of people were questioning Schelotto as the right head coach for this team. Well, now the fact that this season, after a poor MLS back tournament, and even after they did go through what looked like was a turnaround period where they won 4 in a row, they have now lost 5 in a row this season, and look like a team that is actually going to be on verge of missing the playoffs. And that, yeah, I mean, this is kind of getting to a period where this might be the end, where we see Schelotto being the head coach of the LA Galaxy, and that if this team continue to lose and continue to just on verge of now actually competing for the wooden spoon, I have no doubt that Schelotto might potentially be let go. Because I remember when the Galaxy went bottom back in 2017, and actually I believe they won the wooden spoon that year. I think it was Kurt Onefur that was the head coach for the Galaxy, and that he basically did not last for 10 games before he, of course, was fired by this team. So it's not like the Galaxy have a history of decided to keep hold of their head coach even though they have bad resort. And now the fact that they're in a bad situation and have repeatedly put up these bad resort for the past couple of games, I won't be surprised. It's a matter of time that Guillermo Barros Schelotto might be the next head coach that is going to be fired in MLS. But that being said, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this ranking? And if you agree with my ranking, let me know in the comments below. But if you disagree from my ranking, let me also know in the comments below. And if you want to do your own rankings in terms of who is the 5 head coach that is most likely going to be fired next in MLS, let me know in the comments below also. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.